Um, I'm going to cover a few subjects here without releasing a big library. Obviously, by what you experience in my throat, the AI is not wanting me to convey this. And I've covered a lot of this in different segments. You know how segments are, like different parts of a big library. So I'm going to try and keep this simple and fairly fast, but it's actually pretty simple when you get into encryption and decryption codes. And when you get into what are called security clearances or clearance to operate. And so to simplify this, you can imagine the one, the eternal Christic star, has the last highest command authority to override any computer. Okay? Any supercomputer. Any matrix. Okay? That's the highest level authority there is. That's basic logic. Okay? So this would be Kasmina Council on behalf of the one. Now, why is that important? Because of a link that Karen McDonald put up talking about this guy. See what it's doing? About a guy that was in the UK that apparently was denied and getting a bank account. So what I wrote into Kiro's window, I says, okay, I'll extrapolate a little bit more on this. Okay. Because of the way that biometric scans are, and if you ever listen to Max Spears, he talked about with Miles Johnson tracking you coming in and coming out. Okay, when you have guardian access to the Kasmina Council, you have override command authority. Okay, that's a clearance. That's called a one clearance. That means I'm there on behalf of the one, and that's the highest level of security there is, and that's based on purity. Okay, because the one knows your purity. You're another one. That's a mono. Okay. So that's a command function, elemental command function, but it also comes with the authority to make decisions. You can't be overridden. So you know what an override is, right? You write something into a book to record what's happened, right? And you get into all their ability to do with technology, to wiping memories, altering records, and going into all that I've covered before. But in this particular case, I cited a few examples, okay? And that would be, number one, is that they cannot take a picture. They cannot take a picture because you're moving faster, the way that, you know what a flash drive is. So your light is flashing at such a high rate of speed. You know what it means about film exposure, camera exposure. Now we're into ISO frame rate speeds. They can't capture the picture, which means they cannot create a still image. If you ever saw, and this is sort of euphemistically just a basic camerized view, is, for example, in World War II, they were using aircraft with cameras on board, and you can sort of scale it up to when the CIA launched Corona, to be able to read a dime, the date on a dime from a polar orbit. Okay. And so you can see how the resolution and their ability to penetrate, if you will, through layers and layers and layers and layers and layers to still capture the still, much like I used to do with a 35 millimeter camera that I had running an ISO frame rate speed to be able to catch a rotor blade that is going around a shaft horsepower, you know, some 2,600 revolutions, right? And able to stop frame it. If you can stop frame it the way they used to do surveillance simply in World War II, they can now use their magnifying glass to see what's going on down there. Oh, they got a little bus and a trailer here, much in the way that they did during the Bay of Pigs. Remember when intelligence could see through their camera eye view? Oh, this is where the Russians are bringing the trucks in, and they're setting up launch pads. Okay, so you needed to have high-level photography, much like they were using, remember the old SR-71s? Right, taking pictures. Okay, so they can't take a picture of us. They can't take pictures of Guardians. that are carrying the codes, the encryption codes, because if you know anything about the Anunnaki, what were the Anunnaki doing? Making duplicate keys. So you know that if an intruder, just like the example that I gave in this house, okay, where the owner does not want energy in here because why? Can't be trusted. Because when he came back here, he saw the result of what that energy does, which means it can't be trusted, right? So you don't want that energy in the house any more than you would want somebody to babysit your children who's going to rape them, right? Steal all your stuff and be gone because you made an incorrect map read of the operator of that vehicle. Okay? So one of the things that I put up there was what we call collision courses, and I gave an example of that. For example, when I first landed on the island here back in, when was that, Mama? October, I guess it was. No, early part of November, I think it was. Or no, late October, somewhere right around in there. And somebody made an intersection with me at the bus station so that I wasn't going to get my tent up at La Jolla Park before it began raining at night. That's called an intersection. So that means that what I had manifested already to experience in the future did not happen as a result of that intersection, that collision. So you already know how that works because that's the operating environment that you're in. So what that would mean is you wouldn't be allowed to have a bank account if you didn't have access and permission to have a bank account. You wouldn't be allowed to have a particular job unless you were allowed to apply for that job and be selected for that job. Which means, much like John Gato had already described, your consciousness is being directed. Which means it's been programmed to follow a particular roadmap which represents a timeline that they know how to direct through memory wipes and reprogramming. Okay, so that you're performing a job for them and you're not aware of it. That would be all your CIA stuff. This is all intergalactic stuff based on the technology that they use against consciousness to trap the consciousness, wipe the memory, reprogram it to run their machinery. And they're not aware of it. Okay, so you have to be faster at the gun, faster at the draw, so to speak. I used to just play around with this when I was a kid. Quick straw McGraw. Right? You're faster. Right? You're faster. And another way you can think of that is, like I've said in the old Western movies, right? We're already there before they get there. Because the one is everywhere at once, simultaneously. So now you're back to the purity of light, being always with the one. So wherever the one is, we are. So the one gives us access. That's ultimate override. So you know that the one can override any system, can fix any system, fix any matrix that's been broken. Okay? So when you're operating on behalf of the one, because you're not holding one electron captive, you're always with the one. You know how to light yourself on fire to always be with the one, which means you know how to recalibrate anything to come back to the center point from which it all began. That's the eternal spirit of fire. That's the most powerful magic. That's the highest level of speed. That's a one. That's what it means to be fully integrated. That's pre-phase consciousness. Now your energy's in everything. What do you want to be for a day? Manifest yourself in form to present yourself however you want to present yourself in order to operate in that environment, particularly when it's a battlefield environment. Because all you need is the codes represented by the information that's represented by the holographic image that the soul is using the operating system for to perform the job and the missions that we do over here. That's why we pick our biological parents to come at a very precise time. And that speed of that precision is as fast as it gets because that's the one speed. Because we operate on behalf of the one. That's right. So you have essentially the one is always with you, right? The one is always with you. So the one is always letting you know where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be, because I ultimately trust the one I'm with. So I know wherever I'm supposed to be, that's exactly where I'm supposed to be for exactly what it is that I'm doing when I'm there. Wherever I happen to be in this physical form. So for example, I wouldn't have had a job working for the U.S. Forest Service in 1972 and have been accepted to have that job if I wasn't supposed to be up at the top of that mountain. that ultimately led to it snowing on November 15th, that me looking at postcards, oh, well, you're living in a treehouse in Kauai. I'm down there in 3 days. There he is waiting at the airport for me to come so I could be back on the island of Kauai. Remember? I wrote my own timeline. Right? When I lit myself on fire. That's like full rewind, right? Frame by frame by frame by frame by frame. Go all the way back to the beginning. All the way back to now. And there you go. Punch it in. Upload all that data, which was a full data analysis, right? And I called that punching out your time card. I'm done. Take the headset off. You completed your mission. But the work is done when you're hypersensitive, running hyperspeed, which means wherever we are that we're detecting through our sensors, because we feel everything, where we're experiencing anything less what we are, which is what the one is, which is what love is. It goes on forever, gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed. So that's why we're equal unto all, because we're gifting love to all, which is the all creation. So wherever we are that we're experiencing something less what we are, right, realizes that you're losing voltage. You're not supposed to lose any voltage, right? So now you get into the idea about forgiveness. Remember, Kim Go-Goon talked about forgiveness, learning to forgive yourself. Because you got to forgive yourself first, because the one will always forgive you, because that's an eternal engine of eternal pure love. Yeah. That's as pure as it gets. And what do you think purifies that light, that energy? The hottest fire. And that is the most powerful shield, because that's called the shield of one. So when you're running with the one, you have the shield of the one, because you're always with the one. So the one is always protecting you with the one shield. When you have chosen to surrender every last unit of consciousness energy so that you're going at the highest rate of speed with the one. That's what a mono is, the EFFI field. And the era, which means you're joined as one. So we're everywhere at once. So that's tech support. So that would be no different than somebody coming into a matrix, if you will, and what's your ID? Psh, there it is. There's the shield. That's the shield of the one, right? Okay, whatever you need to do, just you got a blank check. I realized we needed some repairs in here, right? And so you got the map with you. So you got the map, and then that means you're running a full data analysis on what needs to be fixed in order to open the gates, right? Ark of the Covenant. Remember, Arshia Dan talked about that. Yeah, because failure was not an option, right? So you realize for how long, okay, I call it, has been sitting on the back burner, right? Waiting, you know. And the way that the atoms naturally cycle with consciousness, all connected to each other, experiencing what we are experiencing, all connected to each other, and why we're all here right now. Right? That's no secrets. Full exposure is full disclosure. That means the entire electromagnetic spectrum is open to us to experience whatever we want. So that's the energy that we use to do it with. How do you want to present yourself? Right? So when I saw that little blurb up there, you know, John Gato did a really good job on one of his videos. You can look him up on YouTube. John Gato, what is it? Socially engineered consciousness. I remember Kim Go-Goon at one time thought, oh, they had been planning. They're architects, arcing techs, tech operators, right? Hackers, biohackers, right? Using codes, right? To trap soul consciousness, wringing their hands like Goering. Oh, I got that soul trapped. I'm playing fake God, right? And so those folks that haven't been exposed to an enormous amount of technology that they can't even imagine. So I use sort of the imagery in the way that their programming how do I put this, unfolds what we see in their TV sets, like I did when I was a kid, what a caveman is. Like Cro-Magnon, right? Or it was perceived and thus presented as if a caveman was some primitive guy with a club, in other words, a primitive mind, or not very intelligent, and the best that animal can do is light a fire, keep himself warm, and go around and hunt fish and kill other animals and do very basic things just to provide what used to be called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's intelligent enough to be able to make its own shelter, intelligent enough to know that it has to drink water, and intelligent enough that it needs food or other forms of energy. It has learned how to be able to do that, either making a spear and going spear fishing, right, or making a reel, a telephone pole, right, casting spells and hooking on fish, right, and then eating fish, or learning, watching, noticing seeds that grow and then eating whatever that is, right, like plants. Unless it learns and finds out, hey, I ate that, and all of a sudden now I'm sick. Well, I'm not going to eat that one anymore, what it was in the visuals. Now we're back to map reading visuals and what we know not to eat and consume, right, because you're map reading the elementals. And the molecular base between acid and alkaline, how that relates to neurotoxins, which does what? Disharmony, distorted waves. Now you're experiencing trauma. The neurons, the neural fibers, right? The circuits are now distorted. To do what? Disable your computer. Right? Distort your music. Now you're not playing beautiful music. Right? And so at the end of the day, that's really what it is, right? We're all playing musical spheres together. So all the spheres are in perfect balance, which means all the music that we're playing is in perfect balance. So we've learned how to tune into all the stars, tune into all the musicians, being plugged in and tuned in to the first teacher, which is the first music teacher, the first spiral, the atom seed, which is hyperspeed, which is hyperseed. Wow, atom seed. Yeah, the first seed cell. So you can imagine when you're running at that speed. And that's the beauty and the simplicity of it, is experiencing eternal love to your own heart and your soul, because you've chosen to serve forever and you've managed to restore yourself, right, of everything that we've lost as a result of what we all know, which is all the above, right? Which is a vast amount of historical data that just began pouring out all over the place throughout the entire morphogenetic field structure, going back. Well, if I go back to my childhood, it's like having a built-in looking glass. It's like you already know your roadmap. It's like it's in the back pocket, right? So you already know what it is you got to do and where you got to be in order to get it done, when you got to get it done. She was very correct about that. The level of precision was very precise on what had to get done at the moments that they needed to be done, just like Terence McKenna talked about the felt experience of a moment, a magnetic moment. How fast that magnet is opening and closing, what we experience next, and the speed at which a monad, right, flashing in and out, being with the one, operating on behalf of the one, the first shield, the eternal crystalline star. That's who we are. Those are guardians, operating on behalf of the one. And Dolores Cannon, to her credit, that beautiful soul, she uncovered a lot of that when she talked about God's messengers, right? The one sent the messengers, right? And that's who we are. We're messengers. Field messengers, morphogenetic field messengers, the EFFI field messengers, right? Yeah. Anyway, have a beautiful day. The sun is out here on the Big On, another powerful morning, right? And happy number 11 day. Today's 11, right? 7, what is it, 7-4, and that's what, 11? 1-1, which is what, 2, binary coded voltage, 717.6, 776, right? You ever get a chance, if you're interested in really breaking down the whole corporate history, just in more modern terms, say going from the founding fathers, Washington and all the rest of those folks that were, and the history that goes to the Knights of Malta, the Knights Templars, right? And who are the other ones? Well, you see the international, I've covered this before about the international logos, if you will, of the International Firefighters Association is a Maltese cross, right? Which is, again, a cross. And Hermann Goering had one, which was known as the Portland Marie, and they used blue, beautiful baby blue, right? Remember how gender works when you're a mother, and and if you had a little girl, right, a baby girl, the room was pink. If it was a baby boy, it was baby blue, right? So my call sign is diamond pink rose heart. Yeah. And so anyway, have a beautiful day. Have a great celebration. One of the other reasons, I figure most folks know this, and this is true because we experience it, therefore we're informed by why 4th of July was set up. One, it's probably one of the biggest drunk days of the year, to go out and get drunk and celebrate. So you know what that does, right? That's called demon in a bottle. And I know, remember, I'm a recovered alcoholic, so I know a lot about drinking. One drink is too many, 1,000 is never enough. One of the ways in which you can tell an alcoholic, and I used to have fun with this, but it is not funny. But alcoholics can make fun of ourselves when we've done this because we laugh at each other of how true it is because we tell you the truth. But I'll give you an example. You're in a restaurant that's got both a bar and a grill, right? So in other words, they will serve cocktails at your little booth, right? And so people come in and out of the diner, right? And then we come walking in and notice that somebody had left, say, 2 or 3 drinks where, hey, that was a vodka and a tonic, or hey, that was a Harvey Wallbanger and there's still half in it. Man, what's the matter with you? You didn't finish it. I'll finish it for you. That kind of stuff. That's one drink too many, 1,000 isn't enough, which is the same thing as $1 is too many. A gazillion is never enough. That's an inverter. Right? So the projection screen becomes the source of what's already being generated that they use or take from and then reconstruct into something else. It becomes an artifact that they sell as a commodity. And yet it is our energy that generated what they take from. Right? Which means we already created it. So they take from what was already created, it, deconstruct it to figure out how we did it, and then make artifacts out of that. Yeah, like all the technologies that they develop. Just like the laptop stuff. There was a lady that mentioned, when was that? Yesterday, and saying that about computers, on how long computers have actually been around, and made sort of an inference from that the computers that we're using, I'm sure this isn't the first time that humans or hominids or bipeds have been using computers. How long have computers been around for, right? And then I mentioned that the University of California, Berkeley has a special collections. So now we're back into Westgate, IB Marduk, right? San Francisco, Interstate 80 between Reno, what is it, the Silver State? A lot of silver, the Sierra Nevadas, right? And then the gold. And then now you have the, atom cell, silver seed, gold standard, superconductivity, silver and gold, right? Silver and gold auras. And why a particular place called Auburn, which is, I can't remember how many miles, but it's not that far. But if you're going from San Francisco through Sacramento on Interstate 80 and you're headed up over the Sierra Mountains where the Donner Pass is, drop right down into Reno, there's a town called Auburn. And if you go into Auburn, between Auburn and, what was it, Sutter's Mill? Remember the gold rush? There's a large section up around that area where they were using what's known as hydraulic mining to expose bad, big gold deposits. right? And in the process, because so much of that topsoil had just been washed away, guess what they found? Yeah, computers, plugs, a lot of the stuff that we use today. And it was dated millions and millions of years ago. What does that inform you of? Stuff that's hidden in view, actually. So yeah, a psychopath is a pathogenic parasite because it will lie to get what it wants. It will go to extreme measures in order to get what it wants. So lying is just the first part of it. Devious, you could use the word devious. The invisible landscape is also known as the war of deception because of masking technology, failure to disclose the truth. But there's also another part of that, which means we don't want to scare these folks. So I realized many, many years ago, what actually happens, what we do is we're measuring the consciousness terrain, the speed of recovery, which would also be known as the speed of acceptance. Remember, accepting the truth for what the truth is, right? Because you don't want to freak them out any more than they already have of what's held in cellular memory and trigger those cellular memories when you understand what abuse does to create an altar, right? So in other words, you want to be able to make it so that they're experiencing less resistance, not more resistance. So that's like monitoring the biovoltage, right? And the amount of pure light, which is God's light, which is eternal light, which is the eternal one, the crystal star, is coming in, right? And that's really how you clean servers out, right? Hub servers, the spoke wheel, the medicine wheel, right? So a lot of the reason that a lot of folks, even in the guardian community, realize that because there's so much happening simultaneously in different councils that make different decisions, you have the highest council. And for me, it's the council of one. Always has the last say, right? Which is the purest of light, which is the purest of fire, which is the eternal spirit of fire, which is the eternal love. Okay, so this is why when Kim mentioned a little cryptic remark, if you didn't hear it, it went by that fast, that there were some things that only the one could do. Did you catch that? That's right. That's exactly right. So anyway, thank you all. And they do count, by the way, as a closing parting shot, so to speak, that they love it when folks really go out and drink, just get drunk as you know what, right? And shoot off making all kinds of noise. And I realized that they were programmed to believe that they were celebrating being free. And don't realize, like down here at this park on 4th of July, they're going to blow off all kinds of big cannons. And it's like, do you have any idea what you're doing to little cells, the plants, the trees, the birds? No. Did it ever be mindful of the impact that it has on them? You know, this is their home too, right? So did you go over there and ask that little cardinal, hey, is it okay if I blow a cannon off in your home here? I guess I should probably leave. Let me know when you're going to be done making noise. I know, Mama. Sensitivity, the level of sensitivity that we have for being fully aware of everything that we're connected to and the impact of what we use our energy for. And how we experience who we are is going to be experienced by everything else that is connected to us, which is the one, right? The whole pie. So anyway, enjoy the day. Love and spirit. Love and joy. Take care.